Donald Trump actually said our new military will bring back new focus on fitness. I love the idea that Trump is lecturing these guys on fitness. I mean, if that isn't the fondue pot calling the kettle fat, I don't know what is. Listen up, generals. I want to make something very clear. The Pillsbury Dope president wants you to do Pilates. The only push-ups Donald Trump does are from the side of an ice cream truck. If you get so fat you start breaking escalators, you are unfit to serve in the military.
The beauty of a roast is that it doesn't need exaggeration when the targets have already turned themselves into living punchlines. Donald Trump and Karoline Leavitt are proof that reality has outpaced satire. A duo so absurd that Jimmy Kimmel doesn't even need writers. He just has to watch them exist. Trump, still clinging to the fantasy that history will remember him as a titan, struts center stage while Leavitt trails behind like a hype woman for chaos, parroting his delusions with the confidence of someone who's never questioned anything in her life.
Karoline Leavitt, his press secretary, the woman who keeps insisting Trump didn't draw this or sign this in 2003, she was 5 years old. She was too young even for Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. So she knows. They're all... I love that these people are so certain he didn't do this. Well, he's never lied before.
The president's obsession with being seen as a genius is Kimmel's first target. He tears apart the spectacle of a man who thinks strategy simply means shouting louder than everyone else. Trump treats every press event like the season finale of a reality show, filled with dramatic pauses, exaggerated gestures, and promises that make no sense anywhere but inside his own head. Kimmel paints a picture of a leader who confuses applause with policy and treats retweets as proof of success. The sarcasm hits hard because it exposes the absurdity of running the White House as if it were just another TV set.
The only push-ups Donald Trump does are from the side of an ice cream truck. If you get so fat you start breaking escalators, you are unfit to serve in the military. Unfortunately, fantasy is more powerful than reality in this magosphere we live in, which meant it was time for our Commander-in-Cheeseburger to weigh in on one of the most pressing issues our military faces today, unattractive battle.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Leavitt, meanwhile, becomes Kimmel's next target, cast as the overzealous apprentice in this ongoing circus. She doesn't just defend Trump. She amplifies his every word as if his nonsense were sacred scripture. Kimmel roasts her with humor that lays bare what blind loyalty really is, embarrassing desperation. She parrots Trump's every whim, not with nuance, but with the frantic energy of a college debate student convinced that shouting equals winning. Instead of questioning his outbursts, she sells them as pearls of wisdom, completely ignoring how most collapse under the weight of basic logic.
So we heard from Erica Kirk. She said she forgives the man who shot and killed her husband. And then right after that, we heard from the president who said, I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them. How does that square with bringing down the temperature of political violence in this country?
Look, the president is authentically himself. I think that's why millions of Americans across the country love him and support him, including Erica Kirk, who you saw so beautifully was on stage with the president.
Kimmel zeroes in on the way Trump treats facts like pesky mosquitoes, swatting them away whenever they get too close. It's not that he misunderstands the truth, it's that he's allergic to it. Every contradiction, bizarre reversal, and blatant denial is presented as if it's a show of strength. Kimmel mocks this talent for rewriting reality on the spot, comparing it to a magician who can't pull off a trick but keeps insisting the rabbit is still in the hat. The comedy lands perfectly, because Trump's behavior is already so cartoonish, it hardly needs exaggeration.
There's this video of what seemed to be garbage bags being thrown out of the window of the Lincoln bedroom. That's the White House. The official response from the White House said it was maintenance work being done while Trump was off on one of his many golf weekends. But Trump is even contradicting his own White House now.
There's a video that is circulating online now of the White House where a window is open to the residence upstairs and somebody is throwing a big bag out the window. Have you seen this?
No, that's probably...
Leavitt doesn't escape the spotlight either. Her defense strategy is simple. Repeat Trump's nonsense with an even straighter face. If he says the sky is green, she'll write an essay explaining why blue was overrated anyway. Kimmel tears apart the emptiness of this act, showing that her role isn't about leadership or vision. It's about being the loudspeaker for someone else's ego. Her rhetoric, once stripped of the theatrics, is little more than applause lines recycled from Trump's greatest hits album of grievances. The roast lands hard because it exposes the hollowness of political karaoke, where originality is replaced by repetition and conviction is swapped for loyalty.
And he's already figured out where to get the money. Trump today became the first president to sue the New York Times. He's suing the New York Times for $15 billion for defamation. $15 billion. Where does he even come up? These are like numbers my children make up when they're talking about money. I thought he said the New York Times was failing. He thinks they have $15 billion? How much would he sue for if he thought they were doing?
Trump's vanity becomes the next all-you-can-eat buffet of ridicule. Here's a president more captivated by mirrors than by legislation. A man convinced every camera exists solely to worship him. Kimmel paints him as someone trapped in his own reflection, unable to tell the difference between governing a country and posing for a photo shoot. His obsession with looking powerful only makes him seem weaker, because every move is staged for optics instead of outcomes. Kimmel mocks the absurd belief that history can be rewritten with perfect lighting and well-timed applause. Leavitt, naturally, plays the cheerleader in this vanity project. She sells his image as if it were the cornerstone of the Republic, pushing the laughable notion that parroting flattery equals public service. Kimmel roasts her willingness to become a mouthpiece as political cosplay, a performance where the only goal is to make her boss look less ridiculous. It's an impossible task, even for the most skilled illusionist.
The president has been hard at work coming up with all sorts of nonsense to distract us from the Epstein files, including, I don't know if you saw this, but he made a major announcement. I am ordering my administration to declassify and release all government records related to Amelia Earhart. Her final tip and everything else about her. Thank you for your attention to this.
Kimmel then shifts to Trump's endless appetite for feuds. The current president has turned petty bickering into an Olympic sport, picking fights with anyone and everyone because attention is the oxygen he can't live without. From celebrities to world leaders, athletes to journalists, no one is too insignificant or too important for Trump's need to argue. Kimmel mocks this compulsive squabbling, portraying him as a man who treats the presidency like the comment section of a bad YouTube video. It's not strategy, it's immaturity on steroids. Leavitt's part in these clashes is just as laughable. She echoes every outburst with wide-eyed devotion, tossing gasoline on every fire instead of guiding or moderating him. Chaos isn't just tolerated, it's celebrated, mistaken for charisma. The humor lands because the reality is absurd. Two people confusing tantrums for statesmanship and brawls for leadership.
What is he hiding? Like, there has to be something in there about him. I can't imagine him doing this because he cares about anyone else. This Epstein list, it's the first time Trump didn't want his name on something. There's a lot of speculation, naturally, including from the writer Michael Wolff, who wrote a bunch of books about Trump. Wolff floated the possibility that Trump may have had Epstein killed himself, which, listen, I know he's done a lot of things, bad things, but I don't think Donald Trump ordered a hit on Jeffrey Epstein. And the reason I don't think he ordered a hit is because if he did, he wouldn't.
The spotlight then shifts to Trump's relationship with responsibility, or more accurately, his lifelong allergy to it. Every failure is someone else's fault. Every shortcoming is spun into a conspiracy. Every disaster is twisted into supposed proof of his brilliance. Kimmel skewers this constant victimhood, comparing Trump to a student who insists the dog ate his homework, the printer broke, the teacher is biased, and the entire school is corrupt, all at once. The absurdity is glaring. A leader who demands credit when things go well, but sprints for cover when they fall apart. Leavitt stands by, ready to shield him from accountability, repackaging excuses into patriotic slogans. She acts as if reality itself must bend to protect Trump's narrative, reshaping failures into victories with the enthusiasm of a carnival barker trying to sell broken merchandise. Kimmel tears into this tactic as desperation disguised as loyalty, showing that her devotion doesn't make Trump look strong. It makes the entire operation look pathetic. The joke isn't just on him. It's on anyone who believes blind devotion can ever replace competence.
Well, Trump announced the suit, this morning. He wrote, "Today I have the great honor of bringing a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times, one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers in the history of our country. The Times has engaged in a decades-long method of lying about your favorite president, me, my family business, the America First movement, MAGA, and our nation as a whole. The New York Times has been allowed to freely lie, smear, and defame me for far too long, and that stops."
Kimmel tears into Trump's warped version of patriotism. To him, the flag isn't a symbol of sacrifice or unity. It's a stage prop, a backdrop for rallies where the spectacle matters far more than the substance. Patriotism becomes performance art, complete with rehearsed gestures and empty slogans, while real service and sacrifice are left in the shadows. Kimmel paints Trump as a man who treats national pride like a marketing gimmick, confusing the theater of patriotism with the reality of leading a country. Leavitt piles on the absurdity by echoing this staged patriotism with breathless conviction, delivering slogans as if they were sacred texts and wrapping Trump's theatrics in a false aura of righteousness. But Kimmel shreds that illusion, mocking the emptiness of treating political branding as if it were genuine devotion to the nation. This isn't about accomplishments. It's about monuments to himself, about making sure the world remembers his name, even if it forgets the substance. Kimmel crafts a tragicomic portrait of a man who dreams of statues but will end up as memes, who imagines libraries but will get blooper reels, who craves reverence but will be remembered for absurdity. It's not just failure, it's failure wrapped in delusion.
Any we may have heard of, by the way, 7 wars. Last week it was 10 wars, now it's 7. Tomorrow it'll be 15 wars. This guy is he ended Star Wars. I don't know if you heard that. He did. Or Mark Hamill. Had to move on to other things. Listen, I have an idea of how you can get people to stop talking about releasing the Epstein files. Release the Epstein files.
Leavitt's role in this fantasy is mocked just as mercilessly. She acts as the curator of Trump's imagined legacy, polishing the facade while the structure crumbles behind it. Kimmel exposes her as the tour guide of an empty museum, selling tickets to exhibits that don't exist. The absurdity lies in her devotion to a myth already disintegrating, a desperate attempt to convince the audience that greatness is unfolding when, in reality, they're watching a slow-motion collapse. Kimmel's takedown leaves no room for redemption because he doesn't just target the blunders. He exposes the entire architecture of the act. Trump is framed as the president who could never resist turning governance into vaudeville, a leader whose every move was less about policy and more about spectacle. The jokes sting because they're rooted in truth. A commander-in-chief who traded substance for ratings and mistook noise for effectiveness. His supposed greatness collapses under the weight of its own theatrics, leaving behind nothing but the hollow echo of applause fading into ridicule. Leavitt's part in this unraveling is no less ridiculous. She positioned herself as the empire's defender, but Kimmel shows she was really just the warm-up act, dutifully setting the stage for Trump's next tantrum.
Trump says the Times is run by a bunch of lefties. He claims they're a mouthpiece for the Democrats. And I have to say, I did do today's Wordle, and I don't know if you did, but he might be right. Besides how ridiculous it is, this might be one of the funniest legal documents I've ever seen. It's quite a tongue bath. One page lists Trump's, quote, hundreds of history-making media appearances, including WrestleMania 5, All My Children, Ghost Can't Do It, 2 Weeks Notice, Days of Our Lives, Miss USA, Miss Universe, The Ali G Show, Marmalade, and much, much more.
Her loyalty was never about conviction. It was about amplifying Trump's insecurities until they sounded like authority. Instead of strengthening his message, she became a mirror reflecting back the nonsense, a second voice in an echo chamber that no one outside the cult could take seriously. Her mistake wasn't just blind devotion. It was believing that parroting chaos made her part of history rather than its punchline. Kimmel's genius lies in showing how the two of them accidentally turned politics into a parody. Every performance became a sketch, every appearance a skit, every slogan a recycled tagline from a reality show gone stale. Trump supplied the raw absurdity, the boasts, the feuds, the empty bravado, while Leavitt acted as the amplification system, turning every impulsive whim into a broadcast. Together, they produced a routine so surreal, it could have aired on late-night television without a single rewrite. Kimmel doesn't have to exaggerate. He simply connects the dots to reveal a comedy act masquerading as a presidency. The gap between how they see themselves and how they'll be remembered makes the roast hit even harder. Trump envisioned himself as a statesman destined for monuments, yet history will remember him as a blooper reel wearing a presidential costume. Leavitt imagined herself as a rising force shaping history, yet she's reduced to a footnote, remembered only for her unwavering willingness to sell nonsense as brilliance.
President, this is all another elaborate, made-up Democrat plot to distract us from the historically awesome job he is doing.
I think we're probably having, according to what I read, even from two people in this room, we're having the most successful 8 months of any president ever. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what we should be talking about, not the Epstein hoax.
Right. We are almost at the I never met anyone named Jeffrey Epstein part of this story.
So what they're trying to do with the Epstein hoax is get people to talk about that instead of speaking about the tremendous success like ending 7 wars. I ended 7 wars.
That's a lot of war.
Kimmel shows how their delusions didn't elevate them. They only magnified the absurdity. The harder they tried to control the narrative, the more ridiculous it became, until laughter was the only logical reaction. The brilliance of the demolition lies in its delivery. It's done with humor, not anger. Outrage can be dismissed, but comedy leaves a lasting mark. When the punchlines land, they reshape how we see them, making it impossible to take Trump's grandiosity or Leavitt's loyalty seriously again. Trump, larger than life yet comically fragile, and Leavitt, eager yet forgettable, are exposed as performers pretending to be leaders. Kimmel makes sure their place in history isn't one of triumph, but of theater gone wrong. The roar of their act has faded into laughter, and their desperate attempts to be remembered as visionaries have instead ensured they'll remain punchlines in a comedy that history will never stop replaying.